seat, and we plan on doing that vote tonight, so, I think we will probably do it, we could do it right after non-public, or we could do it at the end of deliberations. It's up to us. We could figure that out as we go.
Yeah, I just think out of respect for
The
people,
candidates?
I think we should do it after non-public.
Okay, let's do it then. So deliberative item will be added after the 6:30 non-public, approximate time, deliberative appointment. But before public input. Okay? All right. Are there any other agenda adjustments or anything else that we're missing that anybody noticed? No? Okay. I guess we'll move right to nominations, resignations, and correspondence.
I just have one piece of correspondence. It's from Ron Rupp. Ron had emailed me to remind me that at the end of this school year, June 2023, he will be stepping down from his position. As we know, he's already retired and will come back to us. So Brian and I will be working over the next couple of months as we head into budget season to propose a new structure to our athletic department. I'd like to thank Ron for his many years of service and all that he has provided to the students and the staff here at the Hollis Brookline Cooperative District. And I wish him the best, and we look forward to his going out with a bang, shall we say.
I'm sure. Do we need to accept that resignation, or we will do that later on in the year?
We don't need to because he's already
He's retired
retired,
already.
yes.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
Learn something new every day. All right. Okay, that's it. Well, I would like to extend our thanks to Ron for his many years of service as well. Because it's been a lot of years. Okay. At this point, I need to approve the minutes. So we need to approve the minutes. I have the following, the first set of minutes that we're looking at are the June 15th school board minutes, and I have the following amendments. Page 2, line 31 and 32, replace the word would with will. Page 3, line 14, insert AT following the word teacher. Page 3, line 22, replace teacher with teaching. Page 7, line 28, replace is with are. Page 10, line 46, replace represents with represent. So I just need a motion to accept as amended.
So moved.
Moved by Kate, and I need a second. I'm gonna give that to Tom.
I do have
Sure.
one other item.
Sure.
In the discussion of the policy on advertising or whatever
Mhm.
it is, Coca-Cola is a trade name, it should be capitalized.
Okay. So we'll amend the minutes further with the capitalization of Coca-Cola. Great. All those in favor? Was everyone here last?
No? Really?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor? 4-0. Okay, the non-public, or no, the public hearing minutes are next. And I need, there were no amendments on that, so I need a motion to accept as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Tom,
Second.
by Kate. All those in favor? 4-0. Okay, so those are done, right? There's no one else. So we were gonna move to interviewing for the co-op board seat. It's 6:08. I do want the public to be aware that we have a candidate who is unable to be here, Tom Enright, because of a physical, he had little surgery on Monday, so he couldn't drive to be here tonight, and he's not in the town. So we're gonna call him and interview him by phone. And then we have another candidate who said she would be present, and I did tell her that it would be around 6:15, so. Oh, you here? I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Right over
How are you?
here, if you don't mind.
You can sit at the table, if you want, but we'll probably, so we can, how do we do this? You wanna do Ariella first, and then, yeah, okay.
Well, do you want to do Ariella and then call Tom, or do you
I
want to
don't
do it
know.
at the same
What do you-
time?
Same time, probably. What do you
All
think?
right.
You know, Krista, you have the history, what do you think?
I don't
I would
remember.
tend to do it individually.
Individually? Okay,
Oh, you want to do it individually?
okay,
I think it makes the most sense just
Okay.
for confusion. too.
okay.
How do you want to run this?
So I'm gonna go over that. So, we kind of reviewed a little bit of the history with superintendent in the general, because this is a Hollis opening. I want the public to be aware that the only folks who will be voting on this appointment are the Hollis members. And usually in the past, it's been the people from the town that the open seat is, do the majority of questionings. So we have 4 questions. I don't know, but listen, will you let me finish? Seriously. However, I wasn't gonna just do it that way. We have 4 questions. Chris and I are each gonna ask 2, and then after we ask our questions, if there's another question that a Brookline member or we feel like needs to be asked, we can ask another question. Okay?
Thank you.
Goodness gracious.
Sounds great, Holly.
Seriously, so, Krista, did you figure which ones are you doing? What number?
Do you want me to do the first 2, you do the second?
Sure, that works for
Okay.
me.
Thank you.
So, just for the
I'm
public.
still not done.
Sorry, I still have more talking to do. This is Ariella Torgerson.
Yes.
She's also put in to be appointed. So, go ahead, Krista.
Ariel, thank you very much for applying and putting your name in. We really appreciate it. The first question we have is, why are you interested in filling this open position?
Fantastic, thank you. So I ran in March, as you know, and the reason was because of my desire to serve on the board. So when I saw the opening, I was like, oh, this is fantastic. It's another chance. So I'll just go over the reason why I wanted to be on the board originally, and it hasn't changed. When the school shut down with COVID, I think that's when I originally started thinking, and as all of us sat at home wondering what the school year was going to look like and what was going to happen.
Speak to the
Sorry.
microphone. I'm sorry.
I had this desire to be part of the process. I was like, I want to be part of the team that just makes decisions and figures out what goes on in the schools. And I have 5 children, 2 of which are recent graduates, but I still have 3 in the schools. And so then the first year of the elections came around, and I know Liz Brown personally, and I was actually super happy with the way everything panned out. So I was like, you know what, it just would be awkward for me to try to run at the time, especially since I was very happy with how everything turned out, and that's kudos to everyone across the board. But at the time, I was still like, I feel like I still want a seat at the table. I want to be part of the decisions that go on in the school. I want to be part of the decisions that affect my kids. And so then, of course, the next year rolls around, and you guys, no disrespect to either of you, I think you guys have done a fantastic job. But then part of me was like, no, do I just sit back and wait for an opening and never run, or just put my name in the hat? And I'm like, I'm going to take that chance and put my name in the hat. And I don't have any regrets for that, and I possibly would keep doing it. So I think the bottom line is I just feel like I want to be part of the decision-making process and have a seat at the table when things are decided in regards to the school.
Okay, great, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about your prior experience in a role that would work with the board or would help the board?
Sure. So I have been a stay-at-home mom for the majority of recent years. I did serve in the United States military for 4 years, in the United States Air Force as a military intelligence officer. So I do have experience working as a team and as a leader. After that, I worked for a nonprofit for several years, and then most recently was, not most recently, my last job was director of the Corpus Christi Food Pantry. So I had a team of, there was probably about 80 volunteers that worked at the pantry at any given time through different days. So I think my experience would be, or just my experience as being a mom, it would be that I'm a team player, I'm a hard worker, I have good communication skills, I'm easygoing, I feel like I'm a reasonable person, and I'm even-tempered. I have high moral and ethical values. And I think just by being a parent also, I think there should be parent representation on the board. And those, I think, are, I guess, my main skills I feel like I bring to the table.
Thank you.
And I have the, too, the other thing is I have the time necessary. Like, I'm not going to be having certain blocks of time during the week or evenings or days that I won't be available. So I feel like that's an asset as well,
Thank you.
Great,
That I
thanks,
could-
Ariel.
be available.
My question is, what do you see the role of school board member to be?
So yes, that's, I feel like that I have looked through minutes, yes, and I've watched, and which is great, because I previously, we've been in town for 8 years now, I didn't realize, I guess, were they always videoed on YouTube? For years. it was just more recently that I was more involved. It's policy making on, across the boards. I think just like the curriculum, all the different committees. I guess it would just depend what committees I would end up being a part of. They would have more say in like either curriculum or policy or grading. What was the question again? Like, where do
Yeah,
I
no,
see
you
my
got it.
role?
Just
I
what-
think it's
what
just,
the role of
there's
school board
all the
members.
different, like, approving of different things that, fall on, I think a lot of the things, but my understanding is, do default to the principals and to the superintendent, and then you're reviewing them and making sure that they're sound, looking over the budget, making sure money is spent wisely. Just, it seems like there's a lot going on, it seems like there's a lot, and must be divvied up very nicely because, a lot goes on. There's pages and pages of information out there, and you guys must be super busy, but it's, it seems like there's a lot depending on where you fit in.
Great, thank
That's
you.
great. And then my last question is, would you be planning to run for office in March of 2023?
I would be. I would be.
Thanks, that's
Thank you.
So those were our main questions. Do you have something? Okay.
There's other people here too.
Kate?
I'm okay for right now, actually.
Okay.
Thanks.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Tom from Brookline. Couple of questions. This is, may seem like an odd question, but I'm really interested in how we as a board communicate, and I'm curious how you found out about the open position.
Yes, so, someone told me about it at the transfer station. I got 2 separate texts, an email and a phone call, and then of people who were aware of it prior to me seeing the posting for it and told me about it and suggested that I apply. And then I actually saw the thing on Facebook. I think, was it Positively House? I can't remember. Someone posted it on Facebook on one of the sites I follow. But then
Okay.
actually, initially, when I did hear about it, I did go to the website.
Okay, so
But
I
there
guess
was-
the point
there was-
is you heard about everything except from us.
No. I mean, what do you, other than posting it? I
Well, it
guess.
was discussed at meetings, and there were people and the postings, but I'm just trying to understand
Yeah, the
how
process,
people
how
get
you
communicated, so
find-
there's no
Sure.
good or bad answer.
I
I was
feel
just
like in the
curious.
summer, maybe I wasn't following as closely to what's going on.
Okay.
Like, there was a time I was following a little more closely what was going on, but then kind of like sometimes check out a little.
The other question I have is, if you were magically in charge for a day, what would you most like to modify or change about what's going on within the co-op school district?
That's a great question. You know what, I don't have anything that I would change. And that's one of the things I think people had asked me when I was running, and I was like, I don't have this agenda of things I want to change and want to do differently, because I am happy with the way things are going, which was a tough way to run. It's just like, I have super high respect for Holly and Krista, and I like them personally and professionally, and so it was a difficult thing to come up, because I am happy. I have all 5 of my kids have had excellent experiences here, 3 that are still in the school system. I've never had to reach out to principals or to the superintendent for any issues I've had in the school, so there isn't anything that I would see as something glaring that I would change. I think part of what I wanted to do is when I come on here is keep things going really great and really awesome, because you look at we came from Nashua, and you see how things are going in some of the surrounding towns, and you hear things that are going on around the country, and you're like, no, I want to keep us as great as we are.
Okay.
So no, there isn't anything that I'm disappointed in with the school or that I would change that I can think of.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Kate, do you have anything else?
I think you guys have covered it, but thank you.
Great.
Appreciate your coming in.
Great, thanks. So the way this will work is we'll talk to Tom, and
Okay.
then we'll deliberate later, and you can stay if you'd like, or we can let you know.
Okay.
It's up to you.
All right, I'll stay for a little while,
Right.
but thank you.
I'm gonna put Tom over there.
Okay. And we'll handle it the same
Do
process.
you want me to move over so you, by YouTube?
Oh, I'm just gonna put it over there.
Why don't you sit here though,
No, you sit
Krista?
there.
But you sit near it, Krista, sit there.
Oh, I'm not moving. I'm just putting it here so we can hear him. He can hear me through the mic.
You're the ones that need to hear it.
He's not there.
He's away from the phone right now.
Right. We'll text him. Oh, Candy, can you pass the Candy, please?
You can say that, but the signs are off, right?
Yeah. What do we do if we keep it?
I'm not sure.
I'm ready. Oh,
How
these
about-
guys might want me. Candy?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Shedding for the wedding.
Awesome.
That's a thing, I guess.
Right, okay. So, he didn't respond. Okay. I think what we'll do is we'll keep going with our agenda, and then, we'll loop back to this and have non-public after we talk to him. Does that work for everyone? Is there anyone else on the board that has a problem with that?
I just have a concern. Is this indicative of his ability to meet the schedules of the board?
I
Say no.
would say no. What did you say, Kristen?
I would say no.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we'll move on, we'll do, principals and athletic reports, how about we do that, and then we'll, do public input after that, so that the timing's right. Is that okay, gentlemen? Can you guys move on with that? Terrific. It feels like we should start with Patrick.
So
Sounds
we
good.
can't public-
We are moving down to principals and athletic reports, because public input is scheduled for 7:10, so it doesn't make sense to do that. So we'll do principals and athletic reports, and Krista, are you gonna try to text him and
I
see?
did text him.
Okay, okay. He said he was available, so I think it's probably just a glitch right now. Okay.
All set?
Mhm.
So our student open house days have been rescheduled to Monday, August 22nd, and Tuesday, August 23rd, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Those were previously known as registration days, but given parents now register previous to those days, we've changed the name to student open house days. That's where students come in, walk the building, walk their schedule, get to know their lockers, and just become familiar with the building. Students and parents did receive their schedules the week of July 13th, and we've only had a few inquiries about some schedule changes, so schedules seem to have gone out smoothly. Our new assistant principal and special education administrator transitions have been seamless. Mrs. Ally Bushman and Mrs. Catherine Ransom both dove in July 1st, just becoming familiar with schedules, budgets, ESY, staff, and students that have come into the building, and the HB community as a whole. They both bring a lot of knowledge. Catherine Ransom's coming from Nashua and has a lot of experience in programming for some pretty needy students, and she's very, very passionate about working with identified students, so she's been a great addition to the building already. At the end of the year, one of our PD days, we took advantage and offered out the ICS Incident Command Systems Training, which is encouraged by the DOE for all staff to be trained in. Our SRO, Rick Bergeron, helped the middle school staff in becoming certified, and so just about all of our staff are now ICS 100 trained. We are going to try and get our entire staff trained, CPR and first aid trained at the beginning of this year. That was something we couldn't have come to fruition at the end of the year, so we're hopeful that we can make that happen this coming year, as those two certifications are really encouraged by the state of New Hampshire. ESY began July 5th. It's been a little busy in the building this summer, but it's great having students in the building. We have students pre-K through high school across the district, and Ms. Dotball has also continued her summer math coaching for a lot of middle school students. We are currently searching for a long-term science substitute for a half a year. We're also searching for an advisor for our robotics club, as the parent that was helping out last year is moving on. So we're just trying to find some adults to help with those positions and looking for a long-term sub for science. Our facilities work, our custodians are doing a fantastic job in the building. A big part of the summer job is stripping and waxing classroom floors and hallway floors. one of the big projects that's going on is the computer education classroom renovation, which started last week and is well underway. If you have a chance to pop in and see it, it's pretty gutted, and we're excited about what it's going to look like at the end.
Which room is that?
It's the room right at the bottom of the stairs, through the doorway, first door on your right.
The computer room.
Room 112, yes, the computer room.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Patrick? Did, this incident command systems, did some of the staff already have completed some of that? So we're doing that in like phases?
Prior to me arriving, I think Tim held a training December of 2020 or 2019 before the pandemic. And I think a number of those staff were trained then. And it's a training that you don't have to recertify in. Once you're trained, you're trained.
Oh, okay.
So we just offered it back out because we have a number of new staff and a number of staff that didn't take that opportunity back then. So we're pretty close to having just about all of our
Almost
staff
everybody,
trained.
okay.
Was it offered as optional, or was it required for the teachers who were present for the PD days?
It was offered as optional.
Great, thank you. All right, does somebody want to cover Tim's report as well? Who's doing Tim's report? Oh, hello.
Hello. Thought for sure you'd go to athletics. Okay.
I can go
No,
first
it's
if you want.
So in the packet, you see that there's a PE proposal, so we can talk about that at a later time, a new course for physical education.
Are we going to talk about that today, during the discussion piece? Or are we going to talk about it in the future?
Under discussion.
Okay.
Tim has a new team working with him and a little bit of a new structure. So Yolanda is right at home, back at home, whichever you want to say, at the high school, and Aisha Weaver is settling in really nicely. The structure will be a little bit different next year, as Yolanda, Ms. Flamina, will be overseeing science, social studies, and world language, as well as students in grades 9 to 11, which is great because students in grades 9 through 11, she already has a relationship with from when she was down here at the middle school.
Is it 9 through 11 or
9 and 11, sorry. And then Mrs. Zeller's role will include math, English, and unified arts, as well as students in grades 10 and 12. For the professional development days in June, all teaching staff took part in incident command training up at the high school as well, so that was a common offering for the middle school and high school. The instructional practices advisory subcommittee presented information to the teaching staff about the work that was done this year. So they were able to ask questions, share concerns about implementing a home-based CAB block. All of that input is going to be brought back to the committee this year for ongoing work to determine the optimal timing and format for potential implementation. And then over 40 staff completed their first aid CPR training. I'm going to add just a little bit to that, the piece about the Instructional Practices Advisory Subcommittee. Just 1 week ago, the New Hampshire Department of Education came out with a new partnership with One Trusted Adult. This is a book that I looked at about a year ago that I was very intrigued with, but this school year was a little bit overwhelming, so we didn't do too much with it, but we talked about it as a senior leadership team. But now the Department of Education is partnering with One Trusted Adult, and the point of the book and then all the programming that goes along with it is to ensure that every child has that one thing that is crucial to their well-being and success, which is an accessible and caring adult. So we're very excited to have this sponsored by the Department of Education, because that means it's free. But it really is in line with the vision and the work that we feel is critical to whatever that looks like, advisory or other programming. But it's also community-based, so it doesn't limit the look of the One Trusted Adult to be necessarily a teacher or a school counselor, any adult in the community. So it's a little bit of a broader approach, but we're excited to take a look at those the materials and the resources that will be available to us with that partnership. Only 125 schools in the state will have that opportunity, and we are going to have 4 of our schools participate in it. So we're excited.
Great.
Will it be part of professional development in August, or is it an ongoing?
So there's ongoing professional development, and I mean, it's a bit of a program, but it's not fully scripted. It's sort of that right balance of what we like to do in SAU 41, which is take some of this and some of this and, you know, make it our own, make sure that it works for our teachers, for our students, and is appropriate. But that gives more resources that are readily available to that teacher team taking a look at advisory. So
So when you say it's in 4 buildings in the SAU 41, is it in both of these
middle
buildings?
school, high school,
Middle
and then
school.
our upper elementaries,
Upper
because it's a 5 through 12 program.
Okay, great. And so, is this for all staff, or will it be,
All staff.
all staff will participate in pieces of this?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Are you continuing, or do you?
You can ask me questions at that point, but there's a few more things.
Two things. One is, if possible, if any of the materials that come to the school could also be made available to board members, that would be really nice.
Absolutely. I just sent in a letter this afternoon, so they said delivery will be early August, so.
Okay. And the other thing is, can you give a sneak preview of what was discussed? Is it still potentially on the table to have
Yes.
home-based cav block for this coming year or not?
Well, home-based cav block has been a thing, but using home-based cav block in a way that is more.
Home-based cav block as was proposed.
We are not there yet, but there's a lot of interest in what that would look like or other versions of that. So there's a lot of interest in what advisory could be. I think providing more support with some programming would further that. So I was sort of excited that this became available to us last week. For some teachers that need something to hold on to, this will be that encouraging piece to kind of get them to be a little bit less hesitant and more on board with adopting advisory, I believe. And then, you know, there are your early adopters that will be certainly on board. But they had a lot of questions, and I think the subcommittee needs to sift through those questions and concerns.
But when Tim said that, and you said as well,
Optimal timing?
yeah, is there still an open door for optimal timing to be in September or not?
In September? No.
Okay, thank you.
But maybe at semester 2, potentially?
Okay, no, I was just trying to understand, because that will,
Just
in
follow
some
to-
way, introduce the urgency, what the urgency is of the committee meeting. I'm
Yep.
sort of anticipating that as well.
Okay, excellent.
No, I was just gonna say, I'm looking forward to the materials. I think this could be really useful and helpful in terms of getting more people on board.
Right. Yeah. That's an important piece to this whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Go ahead, Gina.
Sure, so we also have the Niask Report that was included. So we have successfully sort of passed, and now we get a little bit of time until our official visit, which comes in 2027, but all that work will begin in the fall of 2024. So they were very pleased with all the work of the instructional practices committees, the various subcommittees, top 10, on the moving to the Latin honor system, the creation of that home-based cav block, and then the discussion within the subcommittee of the potential of converting that into an advisory. So really, the report was well received, and we are good to go, and we continue the work, and then do another self-reflection and self-evaluation in a few more years.
Excellent.
And then staffing updates, we are still looking for a CTE van driver, which is an excellent position. If anyone is interested in that.
That doesn't require a commercial license, does it?
No. I was able to drive a group of our teachers, and some administrators to Logan Airport for a week-long professional development session out in California, and I drove them with the van and picked them up. And I got very good reviews, and they told me if this gig doesn't work out, I could absolutely be the CTE van driver. So if you're interested, apply soon before
It might put you in new tax bracket.
before I take it. No, but I think it's a great opportunity to have some interactions with a small group of kids and just enjoy some time in a van. And as Andy already mentioned, plenty of work going on in the high school and the middle school with summer projects, just nonstop. I was very pleased with how quickly the high school transformed into a construction zone overnight. So the work is going well.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any other questions for Gina/Tim? Great, thank you. I said Gina. Tina, could be Tina. Okay, so now we're up to Brian. I have to
Gina's
find you, Brian. There we are.
Great. So, first and foremost, I don't believe these games had happened previous to the last board meeting, so I wanted to make sure that we got congratulations out to our baseball and boys volleyball teams on their recent state championships this spring. Both capped off amazing seasons. Mr. Corey was there at the volleyball game with me, and for them to kind of avenge an earlier season loss against Wyndham was pretty awesome. It was really a great sight to see, and for both of them to do it on the same day was just kind of made things even more exciting, and which was graduation day, obviously. So great way for those kids to end the year, and a great send-off for our senior student athletes that participated on those teams for sure. So summer, we've been super busy in the athletics department with budget discussions, interviewing coaching candidates. All of our fall registrations are up and running, and participation is looking like it's going to be strong again this fall, which is nice to see. A lot of our teams have been holding open gyms, playing pickup out on the fields. There's camps going on all over the place. We have volleyball and basketball camps, and Mike is running his strength and conditioning sessions in the weight room, which he's been doing for a few years now, which have been very, very well attended from 7th all the way through 12th grade, which is great to see. It's great to see those middle school kids getting involved in that kind of aspect of our programming. We do have all of our sports are scheduled to kick off on August 15th, which really isn't that far away in the whole scheme of things. We're about 3.5 weeks out. Football does start a few days earlier, and the middle school is scheduled to start on the first day that all students are back in the building, which is September 1st. Probably the more exciting news that we've been waiting what seems like forever for is that the press box is finally up at the turf field. It looks fantastic. The company that we've been working with to get that project complete has been super responsive, very easy to work with, and we do have a couple of components that we're still working through some details on with them, but they've assured me that the box will be ready for the start of the fall season. So
That's great news.
we're really excited to get that up and running, and I know I've said it a number of times, but thank you again to the Booster Club for all of their support in getting that project done, as well as our donors that had donated funds to make that project happen. Do you want me to skip over the stipends until we get to
I
discussions?
think we're gonna talk about that in discussion, but I do wanna, before you go on, I wanna just say congratulations to those two teams. I do think that we actually had a meeting after they won, but that's fine.
Okay.
I also wanted to just thank the, I think it's the Hollis Fire Department that escorts them back in,
Yep.
because, that's really a nice new sort of tradition, and I think it means the world to those kids and to those families, and I just really appreciate that they can manage to do that. I know there might be a time when they can't, because there are
Yep.
other things that are more pressing, but I do really appreciate that, and it does freak you out, though, you hear all these sirens, and you're like, oh, wait, I think that might be good news.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but that's great.
Yeah, the Hollis Police and Fire.
Is it the
both,
police and fire? Okay,
yep,
I'm sorry, I
they
haven't
both jump
been
in
there
on
to watch.
those.
Yeah,
And,
that's great.
Cool.
Yeah, it's nice. We have a nice kind of system set up to make sure that happens for those teams as they, come back from those
That's great.
championship events. So,
It's awesome.
so I'll skip over stipends for right now.
I don't know, how do we wanna do this?
I would suggest we bring them back for the 2024 budget discussion.
Maybe
Mr.
we,
Wright,
maybe we can have him explain why don't we,
Get into some, if
yeah.
you try to loop back to Tom and
Yeah, I know, it's like,
far.
so why don't we,
Have you heard anything back?
have you heard anything back from him?
Try calling him again.
Yeah, that'd be great. So at this point, can you just kind of, we'll save questions for later during discussion, but maybe you could kind of like review what your idea is here. And,
Yeah.
we're not deliberating on this until,
No, this is gonna
Just-
become part of the overall budget
Okay.
process.
okay,
Yep, of course. So, I know there's been a lot of discussion around, coaching stipends in our system that we've been using. This is an idea that I kind of started working on, pre-COVID, and then once COVID hit, it, you know, just like everything, it kind of got, put on the back burner. So, my thought is, basically to try and incentivize, or provide incentive for coaches to stay in their positions is to implement a step model that's in similar fashion to what the teacher contract looks like. So basically what we would do is have our base salary, which I'm not proposing any changes to at this point, and then based on years of service, implement an increase for every 2 years of service. So for the years 1 and 2, you're at your base salary, and then after those 2 years, you would earn 10% of that base salary for the following 2 years. And then each 2 years after that, it's just 10% of the base salary. So just trying to simplify it so that we're not, compounding on it over 8, 9 years, where it's 10% of the previous year and so on and so forth. So it was just easier to kind of look at and figure out. So, one of the things that we run into is
$90.
we'll have a coach for a year or two, and, then they find something else that they want to do, or it just doesn't, it doesn't work with their schedule. And the thought is that if we can increase those salaries for those coaches, that it might give them pause to take a second look at it and maybe consider coming back for us in the previous year. Obviously, finding coaches right now is very difficult, as you can see by the list of current openings that we have. We've been fortunate this summer that, that list, when I submitted the report, is less now. We've been able to fill a handful of those positions, but it's still difficult. I mean, we're a lot of our positions that we have open, we're only getting 1 or 2 applicants for. And it's not really, we want to have 4 or 5 people that we can pull from. So, the hope is just to kind of change things up. I know that I don't believe there's any schools in our area anyways, or in our division, that have a model like this. So it could be something that could draw more coaches into our district.
we want to talk about it, I think we're probably gonna talk about it during discussion.
Yep.
I mean, it looks good to me, I have some questions, but we'll wait for that to
Sure.
do during discussion. I think that makes the most sense. So, let's see what Krista says. I'm getting like a little stressed.
He had some, he's up at his lake house and the coverage is really bad, so he wasn't getting a call. So he's in a landline.
Oh, okay.
Tom, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, I've got you next to a microphone. All
I
right,
think you should stay there though, because you're gonna ask him questions.
okay.
Hi, Tom, this is Holly.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Great. So, the way we're doing this is, Krista and I are both gonna ask you a couple of questions, and then we're gonna open it up to, the rest of the board. We have Tom Solon here and Kate Stoll as board members right now. Cindy's unable to be here tonight, due to a death in the family and some previous commitments, so she's unfortunately not able to be here. So, Krista will start with the questions. Are you good with that, Tom?
Yes, I'm good with that.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Tom. So our first question is, why are you interested in filling this open position?
Well, I think that I can step in and be, useful immediately because of my past experience on the board. I've had a long interest in this school district, and my interest continues. I've come to all the district meetings, and so, if I can help out and do something in the best interest of all the kids in the district, I'll do it.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about your prior experience in this type of role?
Sure. I had 27 years on that school board and several more years on the co-op budget committee. Also had some experience on the elementary school board. So I've seen most things, granted over a very long period of time, but once or twice I've seen most things. So when something comes up, I can lend a perspective and do my best to act in the best interest of the kids of Hollis.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
No.
I have 2 questions as well. What do you see the role of the school board member to be?
To act in the best interest of the kids. I also take into account the taxpayers, but so if there's so spending is a consideration, but it's not my primary consideration. My primary interest is that all of the kids in the 2 towns that I've been involved in get the most opportunity that they can.
Great, thank you. And then, Tom, would you be running for office in March of 2023?
I would not. I think I'm, I've been on a long time, and I'm here to help, and I can help immediately, but I don't think, quite honestly, that I'm a long-term solution.
Great,
I think you need somebody younger.
thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Tom Solon has a couple of questions as well.
No, I don't know, I've worked with Tom for many, many years, so
Okay.
a lot of the questions that I would otherwise have for a candidate, I pretty much understand where Tom operates and
Okay.
how he contributes.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Kate, how about you?
I'm good with the questions that have been asked, thank you.
So, Tom, at this point, we're gonna go into non-public and deliberate, and then we'll make a decision tonight, and I assume you're gonna, go on with taking care of yourself, and we'll get back to you in the next, day. Does that work?
Sounds good.
All right, thanks a lot, Tom.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. Thank goodness. All right. I'm glad we got both candidates in. That's great. Okay, so I think what we'll do now is we will go into non-public, because that was sort of our original intent. And we have a couple of things to talk about in non-public. We have about 30 minutes set aside for non-public. I'm not sure it'll take that long. I don't know what we have to talk about. But, and then when we come out, we'll deliberate and vote. Does that make sense? So I need a motion.
Just to be clear,
Sure.
is the non-public for all of us or just for you two?
No, it's for everyone. We all go into non-public,
Okay.
right? Because we have more than
Okay,
this
I
topic,
didn't-
right? We have a few non-public items.
Okay.
So,
Well,
Um,
and your, Brookline's input is important.
right, yeah,
to us as
we,
well. It's
we've
not-
always done it as a
We only
group.
vote, but it doesn't mean that,
Well, last time.
No, we were there.
When it
Yeah.
was Eric and me,
Yes, I remember.
we went out of
You might have stepped aside, okay, but I remember we had a
we went
conversation. yeah.
outside to
Okay.
deliberate between the two of us.
okay.
All right, so I need a motion that the board by roll call go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91-A:3 to C, to discuss a matter which if discussed in public would likely affect adversely the reputation of a person other than a member of the body of agency itself.
So,
Moved by Tom,
Second.
second by Kate.
and we don't need the compensation side of it?
We don't need the
We do
agenda.
not.
We do not.
Okay.
All those in favor, roll call Kate.
Kate, aye?
Tom, I.
Holly, aye.
Krista, aye.
Mr. I. So we are now in non-public session at 6:49 PM. welcome back. And we will be contacting are we good, Mark? You tell me when we're going. Great, thank you. We will be contacting the candidates directly. I will be contacting them tomorrow, and then we will announce the appointment at the August meeting, which we have discovered might need to change. So, so that's where we are with that piece. Out of respect for the candidates, we wanted to do it that way. So, now, at this point, it is now 7:14, so we can open the floor for public input. I usually have a spiel, but I'm not gonna go through my spiel unless we have public input. Do we have public input? No. Okay. Hi. So, I'm now going to close the floor. Public input. I opened it at 7:14 for Dawn, just I checked. And I'm going to close the public input now at 7:15. So, now we're going to move on to, we did the principal and athletic reports already. We are now ready to go on to discussion, right? Because Brian, we did finish, because we got a little interrupted, we did
Yep.
finish your piece, and then we'll talk about stipends more during the discussion piece. Okay.
So you can't leave yet.
So you can't leave yet. And since we have curriculum and program studies discussion, we would need to have Patrick here too, because that's important to talk to Patrick about program studies, because he does all sorts of stuff. Okay. So I'm opening up the discussion for the curriculum discussion. I don't know who's leading that. I assume it's our curriculum, no?
I'm gonna take the first part.
Wow!
I just wanna let the board know that one of the areas that Gina will be highlighting next year is looking at our math program, basically K to 12. This coincides nicely because the elementary schools have been using a new math program for a few years now, and we'll be reviewing that to see if we like the progress that were made. But at the same time, we want to tie in looking at our accelerated program, which begins at grade 6 and goes through the middle school and the high school. And the reason why I took the first part of the discussion is just to tell you a little bit about a pilot that we'll be further discussing in August, but to make you aware of. In order to get back to our regular curriculum cycle and to get more teacher input as we did prior to the pandemic, we're going to be piloting the approach where we'll be asking a math teacher at the high school who has the complete vision of where students need to end up to be doing a lot of work with Gina and myself and the math department head at the high school regarding the accelerated program. So the teacher will be working with the department chair, the elementary teachers who teach the pull-out accelerated math, as well as Gina and I. And then what we'll do is we're going to schedule periodic updates, not only for staff members, but also for the board. We're just finalizing the details, and we're looking at this pilot for curriculum as something that if the model works, that we can use whenever we move from one area to the other. So this year it's going to be math. If next year was history, it would be a history teacher who has that global view of all our coursework, or a foreign language teacher, somebody who is involved with it directly. We've been having discussions with the staff, with the union, and everybody is on board for this potential pilot. We're just trying to finalize the details and bring that back to you in August. And then if we like the format, which we believe we will, because we'll be getting more of the curriculum discussions back to the board level. If we went back to, 5 or 6 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, we had regular meetings where department chairs were at the board talking about all the different things that they were doing, the novels that were being selected, and we want to get back to that, and we believe this is an opportunity to do that. Obviously, this is Gina's area. I was more involved from the pilot because of the union discussion and how we'd like to look at this and schedules and those pieces. But we believe we can work all those out within the current CBA for next year as well as in the future. And if there's no questions on that, we'll give a greater in-depth update, kind of identifying people in August. But we'll turn it over to Gina for the program studies discussion.
And if there are questions?
Yeah, I'll take them right now, Tom.
Can you describe a little more what you envision a pilot program to be?
Sure. The pilot program is the structure we would use to review the curriculum in question. So the individual who is the teacher working with their department head would conduct a lot of discussions around curriculum, what is the emphasis at certain grades, what is the emphasis for certain courses, what are prerequisites that students have to have before they're ready to go into the next course. Those discussions would also take place at the middle school level, especially around the accelerated math program and some of the sports we have in place. And what we would do is kind of do a study of what we say for our coursework, is that actually what we're doing? You know, do we unintentionally create gaps through our accelerated program because we're moving kids along at such a fast pace that we're missing something that I would refer to in math as nuts and bolts that can't be missed? And how do we correct that? And do we need to continue our summer programming that we've established for that group of kids? Do we need to make that more accessible? Should that be done more through potentially electronic means? That way a student whose parents are going on vacation for a week or two, it doesn't feel like they can't participate in the accelerated program. Then what would happen is the discussion would move back to, I would say, more to the curriculum office, and Gina would start to look at this from the global point of view of what our courses are. You know, what are we doing in Algebra 2? What are we doing in geometry? And what is the reality? And what subjects are we just, what I'll say, touching upon? And what subjects are we going in depth? To make sure that if we're touching upon something, that's fine if it's part of the spiral, and at some point it's an in-depth study. The concern would be that, you know, we're just spiraling a certain topic at multiple levels, and the student never gets that in-depth piece. And we're kind of working from AP down to grade 5, because in grade 5 is when you take the accelerated math test. That's coordinated through Gina's office. And how do we build that programming to also increase us access points? Because a lot of times a student's ability to do math is part of their developmental makeup. And because I'm not ready at 6th grade doesn't mean I won't be ready at 8th grade. So how do we create on and off ramps? You know, the other piece we see is we do need some off ramps, because some children get to high school and realize, you know, I always liked math, but math isn't where I'm going for college. You know, I'm gonna go more into the histories, maybe law, things like that. And now I'd like to get on the off ramp, so where do I go for my courses so that I can take more in my area of passion, maybe around history and things like that.
So just to clarify, it's a pilot of the process of developing the curriculum, but you're not going to actually pilot the curriculum.
That's correct. So the pilot is the procedures we would like to potentially implement long-term whenever we study a curriculum area.
Thank you.
Could I add to that?
Yeah,
So another piece of the pilot is utilizing a teacher as a teacher from the high school to be seen as that capstone person, receiving all the students and utilizing some of that teacher's day to do this work. And just specifically for math, because I know this is a question you had earlier, maybe in May, we teach algebra in grade 7. We teach algebra in grade 8. And we say that they're different and that we don't combine those courses. We teach it in grade 9, and we teach it in a 1A, 1B, 2-year sequence. So one thing that we would like to do in this pilot is sit with students as they're looking at problems, at approaching the problems and understanding how they're approaching them, why they're approaching them, and trying to understand is there a piece that they're missing that could help them solve that problem more readily, or is there a piece that they're missing or they're particularly strong in that's giving them an advantage, and it's because of the way we structured the program earlier on. So trying to make sure that we are doing right by all the students and giving them all the pieces they need along the way. Looking at that accelerated grade 6 math program, our first cohort to complete that, they are entering 10th grade in this school year. So we really now have quite a few years of students and their work, and we can look at them in multiple years along the way and see, what can we improve? What can we change? And maybe it's nothing, maybe it affirms what we're doing, but it wouldn't be prudent to not take a look at that over time and watch the progress of them.
Okay, I have a question. So just to clarify, it's the math department head in this pilot process, it's the department head?
No.
It's a teacher
teacher.
from the high school, working with 2 elementary school teachers?
Working with me, working with Patrick as a middle school principal, working with
Okay.
the math teachers in the middle school, working with the math specialists in the elementary
So
schools.
it's not like a committee, it's like this one person is kind of the point person to do a lot of the data gathering, the
Yes.
research, while they're researching it with their own students, talking to their colleagues, connecting with their department head, connecting with you, connecting with people in the other districts.
Yes.
So it's kind of like and this one person, is this person getting any compensation for this?
It's in lieu of a section.
Okay. So, and then the focus right now is really on accelerated math, right?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. It's,
But it was so we, it's always that discussion because years and years ago when we had the accelerated program, we realized that some students didn't benefit from it. So we took it away. And then we said, well, that's not right to take away from everybody. So we reintroduced it, but we wanted to make sure that we were tracking the students along the way in terms of their progress and their level of understanding, so we didn't recreate the same problems that we had years before. So we're taking a look at those students, yes, but also because we're looking at, a good place to look at is Algebra 1 because we teach it in so many
Right, so
different
many
ways
different ways.
throughout. And so you have every student has to take Algebra 1 to be eligible for your Hollis Brookline diploma. So looking at them and their approach, then that takes you back to what did grade 8 look like? What did grade 7 look like? And what did the elementary math program, how did that prep them? At the same time that we're doing a full curriculum review for our K-6 math program to make sure that maybe we stay with it. Maybe we go in a different direction, but at least we're picking something for K-6 with the lens of that graduate. Let's make sure we're setting them up for success.
and as we pilot this, and we've chosen, or you're working on choosing someone to do this, in the future, is this something where you could see having multiple people apply for that role? Like multiple people in a department might want to do it, and so you'd have to like interview and, okay. Just wondering, just kind of going through. Are there any other questions?
Well, you actually asked part of my question, which was the compensation piece, because it sounds like it's a pretty rigorous role for someone to be taking on. So they'll teach one less
Correct.
section. Does that leave a hole where we need somebody else to be teaching? Or-
No, so, as we looked, we graduated a very large class and we had a very small class coming in. So one of the benefits was we were set up to think outside of the box and look at the possibilities of what could we do. So this class size spreadsheet that you saw in May with really good class sizes included having one teacher with one less section.
Okay.
So it was just an opportunity for us at that time. And then if it's successful, then we potentially might look to budget appropriately to allow that to happen as our enrollment goes back up.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you. Great. Any other questions on the pilot process? I guess pilot's a weird word for it, but whatever. Oh, sounds like a good plan. I like it, and it sounds like we're gonna be talking about curriculum and math. Yay. Okay, so, program of studies is next, I think.
So, the program of studies isn't included in here, but it is on the website. It's what you approved. So what we do in the spring is have discussions with our department heads about vision and potential holes or gaps that they might see and potential new courses that they'd like to propose. So included in the packet is a potential new course to offer, which is a half-credit class called Intro to Strength and Conditioning. Similar to the origins of personal fitness, but personal fitness has changed and evolved over the many years that it's been around. So Intro to Strength and Conditioning is really focused on strength and conditioning, but it incorporates quite a few health standards. So it is really understanding the body and the body's response to strength and conditioning. So that's, you see this here, it follows the same template of the template that we began working with last year. I think it's really well thought out. It would not require, or would not have a budgetary impact because there are no new materials that would be required for this course. There's no textbook. The weight room was recently, upgraded significantly, so everything is present already. But the thought of, is this something that we would like to present as a new course when the program of studies comes out in the fall? And sometimes we end up making decisions based on running a course or not running a course based on signups. So, it'd be interesting to see the level of interest. We certainly saw a huge increase in the level of interest in our physical education courses at the high school this year, which worked out well with our increase in physical education teacher for the budget. So, we're trying to meet the needs of the students that really want to engage in this sort of activity. It's an elective, so it's not a requirement, but it provides another opportunity, another way to fulfill an elective half credit.
Does it meet the regulations for New Hampshire as a half-credit PE class, or just as an elective?
So it would meet half credit PE class, but it would not cover the health credit that's required, just based on the fact that the health credit does require you to have very specific standards, and this addresses some of them, but not all of them.
So the kids would still have to take, is it personal fitness that they take freshman year? Is that what that's called?
Wellness and personal fitness.
Wellness and
But they're separate, like wellness is
It's like every other
half
day.
credit.
Yeah.
Is it personal
Yeah,
fitness?
it's
Not
just
personal fitness.
and fitness.
Wellness
It's
and what?
wellness and fitness.
Wellness and fitness.
So do we have a personal fitness class? You don't know.
We
I'd
have personal
to-
fitness, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Would we offer this in the spring? Is that when we would put it in, or would we put it in for the fall? Because don't kids have their schedule on it?
Right. it
Oh,
wouldn't be
no,
for
no, no,
year.
this would be for putting in the program of studies for the following year. Yep.
23, 24, okay, yeah.
But this is the time we take a look at it, because sometimes if we were to propose a new course, it would require textbooks, and we'd have to budget for that. This doesn't include a budgetary component, but this is a time of year that we look at it. Another course that we considered was looking at a Latin 3, but we're just not ready to do that. It's just so you know, like the thought process that is involved in that, that's a multi-year approach, because if we were to do that, we would have to change our requirements for Latin 1, because as of right now, Latin 1 is available to 11th and 12th graders. So they would have graduated by the time they'd be eligible for Latin 3. So we would, if that's the direction we wanted to go and we wanted to propose, we would have to first amend Latin 1 and make it open to 10th, 11th, and 12th, so that would open up the possibility. So that possible change would be a multi-year endeavor.
Well, I would assume any kind of changes to the program of study, not any, but many changes to the program of studies would be multi-year, which is why I was hoping like next month we as a board could weigh in, but we can't expect that whatever we say will happen. It's gonna take time. It's just giving us sort of an opportunity to have input into programming.
Absolutely.
Is the framework of this discussion this course? or
Yeah,
program
this
of
course.
studies?
No, program of studies discussion will be in August, so this was just to kind of give us a little bit of a introduction to this particular class, and then to remind the board that that will be the topic. So what we're gonna do tonight is talk about budget, and then in August, we'll talk about anything that you could see as you review program of studies. And the program of studies won't be included in the packet, it's on the website.
How many students would be allowed to enroll, what would be the maximum enrollment for this class?
We haven't gone that far, but I would say it would be similar. I have it open to personal fitness, which I think is 20. Give me 1 second.
And where would the class be
In the weight room.
in the weight room?
I guess I'd need a little clarification on what the differences between the two, but I guess I could look at the curriculum of personal fitness. This is just more in-depth,
This
like
seems
strength and
more
conditioning.
Physiology,
Right.
kinesiology,
Yeah,
it
no,
seems like it's really trying,
And has health
This-
elements of nutrition and,
yeah.
yeah.
So personal fitness over time has evolved into more of a like a cross-training approach, and this would bring it back to more weight training.
Okay.
Some, a decision could also be made to offer this new one and not the old one as a way to reintroduce a course. So if you recall in the math discussions of a few years back, we retitled the middle school courses to make sure that they understood that we're ever so slightly different.
If this were popular, do you have the vision or expectation that multiple sections might be offered?
I would envision that it could be a period 1 fall and period 2 spring, but not necessarily throughout the day.
Okay.
Great.
I don't see that we would have that many students involved.
Has there been any kind of obvious pull for this, or is this based on what our staff's capability is?
There's definitely an interest in our we already talked about the strength and conditioning over the summer. That's a huge program,
it's
very
getting bigger
popular
and
among
bigger.
students. So this just gives them the opportunity to kind of continue that work, but during their school day, and maybe give them a break so that they aren't trying to find time in the evenings to come back and do it. So
And if someone chose this as their PE section, assuming they build this typical schedule where there's only room for one PE section in the 4-year deal, what couldn't they take? What do they take now to fulfill PE that might get bumped?
okay, so if you keep in mind, we offered the alternative credit for
Yeah.
PE, which some have taken advantage of, but I think many are eligible for it, and maybe some of them do it, but still want that and request that course, that additional half credit. So we have personal fitness, we have team and individual sports, we have unified PE. So we have a few different offerings.
We have an outdoor something?
What I'm wondering is
No?
is this going to be competition for other classes that they want
It
to
might.
take, but there isn't room in their schedule to say, I really like this, it sounds great, but I also wanted to take this one.
Yeah, you always have that.
Will this push us in a direction where we need to adjust our requirements to allow students to have more of an emphasis on these types of classes?
So I think the easiest way to avoid forcing a student to take a particular schedule is to eliminate all offerings and just Algebra 1, English 9.
That's not the
No,
kind
because
of-
then you have, 8 sections of them, and so
No.
you can make any combination fit. But if you make this offering, the same difficulty will apply that you see with many of our seniors who want every AP course. There are only 7 periods in the day, and there are, let's say 8 singleton courses. So you're not going to make every perfect combination.
No, where I'm going is,
Sorry.
are you seeing an expanding of interest in this type of curriculum?
Yes.
That we should be looking at our distribution requirements to allow students who have this interest and to whom we are now catering to do this and still reach the 23 requirements.
They absolutely can do that. What's been limiting them, which we fixed, solved the issue, if you will, by increasing the PE position this year in the budget, is that we had far more requests than available teachers. So we've increased our PE teacher to 1.0, and so we've been able to fill more requests. But we absolutely have been historically turning students away from elective credits in PE. They go beyond the requirements.
So if students want to have 1 to 1.5 credits of PE, can they do that and still meet our
Absolutely.
okay.
Well, they need one to graduate.
Right,
No,
so you-
one of them's, half is PE and half is wellness.
Yeah,
And
but
then
they
there's
still
an
need-
additional
they have
half
another
credit.
half, so they need one full.
Yeah.
They do, okay.
They need one full. And I think what's great about this is that, so I think our kids would like to take, I think our kids like to take PE, and I think for some kids, it's like the best elective that they can take. So I think it's great to have opportunities and offerings. I'm not so sure that after a couple of years, we're still gonna have strength and conditioning and personal fitness. I feel like there's a chance that kids, because I think what I'm hearing is that interest in strength and conditioning is what kids are really interested in terms of fitness. And so I think we might lose one class in exchange for the other because we might have more interest. But but we put it in the program of studies and we see what they sign up for.
Right.
And if lots of kids sign up for that and they don't sign up for personal fitness, then we can adjust. So I think it sounds like and it also, looking at the curriculum, it sounds like a really strong class where they're gonna learn a lot of good stuff about strength and conditioning, but also
The
health
health
and
aspect,
fitness
yep.
and kinesiology and all that stuff.
Anatomy.
Yeah, that's the thing that struck me about this, is it doesn't fit what I see as a typical mold of a PE credit. There's the opportunity, at least for a strong academic element to it, that could connect to science classes,
Mhm, absolutely.
and other areas. So I think that this could draw a lot of interest. What I was getting at, what I don't want people to do is say, if I take this, I give up something else I really want. So, thank you for indulging me.
But it easily becomes the other credit that they have to earn anyway in order to graduate. I mean, I love it for the opposite reason, which is that you've got a lot of students who athletically, they want those extra PEs. You also have a lot of kids out there who aren't so athletic, but have to take PE in order to graduate. And so giving more options. I mean, at VLAX, we have walking fitness, running fitness, we have strength, we've got personal fitness 1 and 2. But we have more options, and it gives some of those kids who maybe don't want to do that traditional PE class an opportunity to find something. That flexibility is one of our classes, so and it aligns, and you can still earn that credit and graduate with it, so.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this year one of our least popular PE classes is team and individual sports, because that's sort of what you do in fitness, and that's, that caters to a particular group. But the outdoor adventures, the personal fitness, the unified PE, that's going to attract a different cohort, and I think this one might as well.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you for the thoughtful presentation. So again, next month, we'll talk a little bit more about program of studies, so it's up to board members to review the program of studies and see if there's anything that jumps out at you. I mean, as you've said, the department heads have looked at it already, and administration's looked at it, and, but I just wanna kind of be ahead of the game. So the next topic for discussion, unless we're done with that, right?
Yep.
Everybody good? Is 2024 opening budget discussion, but I think we're gonna start with the stipend discussion, and then we'll go around as board members and kind of lay it. So, and that way Brian can do his stipend, we can talk a little bit more about that. So thanks for the presentation on this. Do you have any more to say about this, or?
On the stipends?
Yeah, we're good? We're
No,
just
I
gonna-
think we go to Brian.
Okay, and that's
then,
questions.
From there, we'll just talk for a second about the restructure of the athletic administration, give you a couple other updates, and then we go around the table. if it's
Okay, that sounds good. Can I start, Brian, with a question for you?
Absolutely.
So I see that you didn't increase or ask to increase the first year. So I guess, I mean, I think this is a good plan for longevity, but my concern is all those openings. Do you feel like we are in a competitive place with other area schools?
Yep.
And in our division, let's say, D2, like, are we, the D2 schools that are sort of in this area, are we competitive?
So compared to the, Milford, Sauhegan, we tend to pull Conval in, because they're relatively close for another Division II school. I'd say out of those 4, we're actually probably on the higher end of the spectrum, so, and not much higher, I'm not saying we're miles above where they are, but I don't think that is necessarily a factor that, they're going to these other schools because they're paying their coaches, more generously than we are.
Okay.
Yep.
Are there any other questions on this idea?
I was just curious about how do people fall into the different tiers?
Like in general, or where we are now?
Well, so if we have a new coach come in, they start
They start at that base salary.
the base salary, but
Yep.
who's at tier 1, who's at tier?
Oh, that's in the.
So that's our full.
Further down in the packet, they've all been assigned, and that,
Okay, so unless I missed it, I thought that was more extra, or were they all mixed in?
no, this is, after you
Page
get through
3
the
and 4 of
extracurriculars, the next 2 pages.
There
are-
it is, all right, I knew I saw it somewhere, thank you.
Yep.
That's up, that we look to
Yeah.
them to say what tier it should
Right,
be in.
right.
Correct. Yep. And that's all based on, you know, time that coaches are spending. You know, we have some teams like, I'll take bowling, for example. You know, they have one practice a week and one meet a week. And whereas if you look at, something in one of those higher tiers, like the basketball coaches, you know, they're typically going 6 days a week. You know, three or four practices and
Sure.
2 or 3 games, and so it's really based on time commitment is how we look at how long the season is, you know, how many practices they're having, and that kind of thing to, you know, justify dropping them into those different tiers.
That makes perfect sense.
Yep.
I actually just missed them. I got as far as the extracurriculars and then didn't see the next 2 tables, so thank you.
Are there any other questions on this process and any thoughts on this?
Yeah.
Do you wanna see it, like, so you don't have to bring
No,
it in?
it's okay, I've looked at it quite a bit. There's a couple of things. First of all, Brian, I really thank you for taking the creative approach to looking at this. My immediate reaction is that I wonder whether if we're looking at a situation where we have a competitive environment and what we're looking at, then the hiring point is critical. And in that case, if we were to go with this structure, I question the requirement that all new positions start at base level, because if we're bringing someone in who has experience and is viewed as being of greater value to the program, I would see, just like we do with professional staff, saying, well, they're coming in having been 5 years at another school, it's relevant, should they come in? But fundamentally, I wonder whether $100 increments is really going to make the difference, and it becomes a pretty complex situation to manage. Where you put somebody on a table can be kind of touchy if it is discretionary. What qualifies as experience to place someone in a position on a table? If we're going to if we're really going to do our job as a board and as an administrative group, and we review these every year, do we need this complex a structure, or just take a more active role in managing the table? I don't know which way I feel about that, but I'm a little concerned about making something that sort of looks like a CBA-type structure in a environment where we're really trying very hard to make sure that extracurriculars are not treated like CBA, as part of the CBA. So that's I'm just voicing my concern. I'm not sure where I feel about it. But my question to you is, do you think if you've got an existing staff member, a coach, do you think $100 is going to make a difference between them staying or not staying?
I really couldn't answer that question. I'm not entirely positive if it would or wouldn't. I think knowing that.
Do you think pay is an issue? Do you think pay is often a deciding issue?
I think that's definitely part of it. I mean, we've had a number of younger applicants that have come through in this recent round of hires that, you know, everybody always asks how much, you know, leverage do I have, what can I do to increase that? You know, that's always a question that's asked, and I do think there's a want and a desire of coaches to continue to move up, you know, within the divisions and up to higher levels of coaching, especially when you get someone who's very qualified. You know, if they see a Division I opening, which typically your Division I schools are gonna pay a little bit more, that's gonna be appetizing to them, and they're probably gonna jump at that opportunity. So, if they know that, you know, if they stick around here, then that financial opportunity is gonna be there down the road, then, you know, like I said, it may give them an opportunity to think twice about it.
do you see the need to both have this kind of a structure that you can say up front, you know, if you stick around, you're guaranteed to get 10% every 2 years, and then on top of that, are we going to need to escalate the table every year?
And I think that was part of the conversation. I've talked to Gina quite a bit about this, and with Tim and Ally at the middle school. I think that this provides something that we can run with for a number of years. I think that eliminates the need to continue to go back and say, okay, do we want to just do an arbitrary 5% increase across the board next year? This, you know, provides something that we can stick with.
Okay.
I mean, I think that it sends a message that there's like a future, a little bit of a future like steps, which I think, so it's great if people want to just try coaching, right? Like they're new teachers and they just want to try it for a year or two. But it's not great if people are coming in specifically given their family situation in terms of where they are on the team, and they're coming for a year or two. So I think this kind of sends a message like, we're hoping you'll stay. You know, we want, this is a commitment. This is a job, a commitment. A couple of years is good. I hope you're all hearing what I'm saying. I think that's a good way of doing that. I guess my only question is really not for you, Brian, but if we have this kind of a structure for this stipend table, are we going to need this kind of a structure for our extracurricular type stipend table?
I think it lends itself to get something down for both groups, because to me, it doesn't matter whether I'm an athletic coach or the director of the musical. They're both working with students. The table is designed to be based on hourly commitment time. And then I think it's kind of, how do we create that longevity? And most people who get into either coaching or working with school plays or things of that nature don't do it for the dollars. But they do appreciate
Clearly.
seeing, they do appreciate seeing that there is some movement and that we can move forward. I think to answer one of Tom's point, by establishing a table like this, at least it gives us a starting point if all of a sudden we find out we're too low across the board. You know, everybody else has gone up and we haven't. So then Brian can work off the base and the tiers at new starting points and reconstruct a table. But I think most of our, you know, in-house co-curriculars could also be using the same, you know, how many students are you dealing with, how many hours a week is it, those type of things. And I think we can incorporate that into a much larger thing. And lastly, selfishly, it makes it much easier for planning purposes for budgets. You know, we know when we're going to be anticipating increases, you know, and it's not something that wouldn't be planned, because it's easy to say to, you know, groups of people who dedicate themselves to these type of activities, now it's a tight budget this year, we're not going to do anything. And what that happens is then we start to lose those individuals, because, you know, if you break it down hourly, we're getting a lot of bang for our buck from people. And then you go back to what Gina talked about earlier tonight, one trusted adult. A lot of times that trusted adult is somebody who is in one of these roles. So they're critical for our students. So, you know, we can't underestimate their value based on a stipend for what they do, when what we're really looking at is the impact they have for kids.
Andy, what do you think of the merits of bringing everybody in regardless at base versus the looking at bringing them in based on outside prior experience?
To your point, Tom, would probably say that I would rather see Brian have the flexibility to do what's needed, because during that interview process, we're going to find out that a coach is coming over and they've got 5, 7, 8 years experience. We think they'd be really good for our children, no different than we would when we're trying to hire that teacher to fill the department out. Brian, I think you had a point?
Yeah, and I would say that we certainly could do that, but it would have budget implications, right? Because every year when we put in our budget line for our coaching stipends, it's $1 amount. We just total up all the numbers from the tiers, and that's what we're budgeting for. So assuming that we're gonna fill every position, the predictability of this is what I really was looking at, and that's why I'm saying your first year here, you're at the base salary, because, you know, if you look at our highest tier, coming in that first year, it's at 4,700, and all of a sudden, you know, we're looking at almost a $2,000 increase. So if we hire 5 coaches that, you know, are coming in with 9 years plus experience, then obviously that's a pretty substantial increase that now we have to try and track down somewhere.
I'll say 2 things on that. First of all, when you're budgeting, do you budget assuming the coach is staying?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you've got one number for a coach that's staying, and if that coach decides not to stay, then you potentially have a surplus.
Correct.
The other is, for budgeting purposes, as we do with teaching staff, we don't assume entry at the bottom. We assume that we do what Master Step 5, I think, is our baseline, and it averages out, because we prefer to hire people with some experience, as you may as well. It puts greater responsibility on you to think about it. If you're required to only budget at the base, it makes it easy, but it doesn't necessarily make the budget any more accurate, I guess is my
Sure.
point.
Yep.
So it gives you some flexibility though, because as you budget in the future, you can kind of not put in the base number, but put in sort of a different, you know, one of the,
Yeah, I mean, if that's how we want to approach it, I can certainly
I
do
guess,
that,
I
you
guess the
know,
question
it's
is, if you're trying to recruit someone, and do you think the difference between, say, between base and step 2 on like a tier 5, you're talking, almost $600 difference a year. Do you think that would potentially be a deal maker or breaker?
I think it could. You know, if they're applying in 2 different districts right now, and let's assume that it's us and Sauhegan. I mean, that's gonna push us well above Sauhegan.
Are you planning on plugging our current coaches into this, into their experience they already have?
That would be the plan.
And
Yep.
that's the number you quoted?
Correct, yep. Yeah, that proposed
That's where the
model total
231 is coming from.
That
Yeah, okay.
encompasses everybody's experience, what step they would be on if we were to implement this for
and if
FY
everybody who
24.
you know is staying is staying.
Correct, yep.
That might encourage them to stay.
And so do we have any concerns with this being like what Tom said? I know there was a lot of work done getting the stipends out of the CBA, and then this is sort of creating a CBA sort of a look-alike. Is that a concern?
You know, I think there are 2 things that we're trying to consider. We're trying to be able to attract coaches, but we're also trying to keep them. And I just want to say that I worry about placing people wherever, because that takes away the longevity aspect of this. So I don't know if we want to potentially take a look at another piece for longevity, rather than, like, maybe there's a tier based on your experience, and maybe there's, you know, an additional longevity bonus of some sort, like a one-time thing after you hit X number of years. Because I don't want to take away the benefit of the longevity piece that no other districts have, just for the sake of having flexibility and trying to attract people. So that's just a thought that I had.
So in the process for this is we don't vote on this, you would just put this into the budget? Is that how this would work?
Well, we would have.
Don't we have to vote on budget?
We have to vote on
We have to
stipends.
vote on stipends, right?
What we would do is we would take the input from tonight, kind of go back and tweak it, determine how do we continue to honor longevity, because we would love to have a coach spend 25 or 30 years, or the music director or anybody. And at the same time, make our salaries more attractive. Then we can work with the business office to kind of figure out what would be that placeholder in the budget for a coach we knew was leaving. So just like we do masters, step whatever for teachers, we would figure out something for coaches, so Brian has a little flexibility there. And then I think what we'd do is bring it back, A, for you to approve the stipends, but B, kind of approve the process going forward. And then basically, my suggestion would be, since we do it in 2-year increments, that we kind of review it every 2 years to see if it needs to adjust or can stay the same.
Listening to Gina's concerns, it makes a lot of sense. Answering Holly's question about it, making it CBA-like, I think what it needs to do is we need to keep top of mind that this is not a CBA.
Right.
And we just have to make sure that we don't fall into the trap
Right.
of treating it like it's a continuum.
Right.
For the longevity aspect of it, I think there's 2 elements. One is perhaps we could put a cap and just say maximum you could hire would be at step 2, that you know, as opposed to base, give them some flexibility but not, so that way at least there's the 5-year growth. And then the other is, if we are reviewing this as we should on a regular basis, even for people who are at the top step, if we're doing our job, there's probably going to be, I'll call it COLA-like increases available, even for people who have been there with some seniority. But what I would caution against is something that became like an off-step table that we've had in the
Yeah,
past.
you don't
We
need all
just
that.
get so
Right,
complex.
no, right.
So I think my recommendation is,
Okay.
first of all, I want to thank Brian for
Yes,
his
Brian,
efforts.
this is great, thank you.
And we'll take the suggestions and the input that we've heard, we'll bring it back to his group, and then we'll bring it back at some point during the budget season for kind of what I'll say approval.
One thing that would be very helpful, if you have done a competitive analysis to other districts, it would be really nice to see what you have for data
Yeah, of
on
course. Yep.
This is excellent, thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Very creative,
You are,
thank you.
yeah, very great. You are welcome to leave. We're done with this part of the discussion, I believe, right?
And just,
I just wanted to stay just for this next piece, because
Oh.
as you know, with Ron
but
deciding
just
to
before you jump out, is it your thought process that you want to consider creating something similar for the non-athletic extracurriculars?
Yeah,
So
I
we
think it was,
expect to see that in the same time frame?
yeah, I think the piece that'll take a little longer is just to make sure we're getting an accurate count on hours.
Okay.
You know, I really want to make sure that,
Well, are you talking about the step table part of it, or just the assignment to tiers?
kind of the assignment to tiers to make sure that we're, you know, like each activity's in the right place.
So that's not already a part of it?
I think it is, but I just want to.
You want to double check
I want
it.
to make sure that we're
Okay.
comparing apples to apples, and we're not saying that we're doing hours, you know, counting the football coach.
Yep.
But the person doing the play, we find out is doing more hours than that, and yet the salaries aren't close.
Oh, I see. You want to see if other extracurriculars are in the same ballpark as the athletic ones.
And luckily, in round 1 of the budget, that doesn't include the superintendent, that's what we've done. We've taken a look at these and made some adjustments based on the hours. So that you'll see
Okay.
with the budget, and
No,
then we can also bring
I
this step
thought
approach.
you were saying you wanted to create a step table for the other extracurriculars as well.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at that. I think what I'd like to do is take all the information back and figure out,
Digest it.
yeah, and kind of align it a little bit maybe closer to Brian's, I like some of the structures there. Because I think the biggest thing for a staff member is the transparency piece.
But even when you look at the stipend table for the extracurriculars, so for example, class advisor for freshman year, class advisor for sophomore year, or tier 3, we already moved them up. Like, if they follow every year, by the time they hit seniors, they're getting, because the job changes. So you're not gonna have that same longevity issue in that particular thing, because you want an advisor to follow a class.
Can you do that?
So if the advisor follows the class, then they should be getting increases. And then if an advisor just walks in senior year because the other advisor leaves, they certainly should be getting that, because, so, it's just a little different dynamic and complexity. Yeah.
Just to jump over to the athletic office.
Oh, that's your office.
with Ron ending his career in June of '23, Brian and I will be working to a restructure of that. I just wanted the board to be aware, I think there may be a slight budget savings, but we're looking at more of what I'll call administrative support for Brian. The other thing we're looking for is game coverage, because the number of night requirements, so we'll be looking at some what I'll call stipends for individuals who would be willing to cover game contests and things of that nature.
When you
So-
say covering, what does that mean?
Be the administrator at the contest. So it
Is
might
that a
be-
requirement or just a desire?
We usually have it as a requirement because of the safety concerns, so they would go through a training with Brian of, who do you call, what do you deal with? I mean, use the example of, a Saturday morning soccer game and Brian is not attending, the administrator in charge would be well-versed in, Hollis Fire and Police, all those things in case there was an injury. We'd make sure they were introduced to our athletic trainers, those type of things. So we'll create kind of a stipend piece for that. So, because what I don't want is, in some districts, the job of athletic director has become unmanageable, because there are just too many pieces. So we need to make sure we balance that for him. So we'll be doing a restructure at that, but I do think we'll see some savings there. I do also want to just put it on your radar. We had talked, probably 15 months ago about enrollment trends, and it looks like potentially in 3 or 4 years, we could be hitting an enrollment increase. Now, obviously, that is, Hollis and Brookline have always been very dependent on the economy. So what was accurate 15 months ago may not be the same as this year's numbers. But the state of New Hampshire is bringing back building aid. So last March, we had to file a notice with them if we thought we were going to do that. So I did file with them a notice. We asked the company who's doing our renovations this summer, and Lavelle Bernier, the architects, we're working with them to take a look at our facility. Our biggest area, which is no surprise, is our lack of cafeteria space. And it's just.
Really?
Yep.
No.
We're not classroom limited as well,
Well,
currently?
we're not what?
Classroom limited as well?
We are classroom limited, and we've always talked about that classroom limit number being in the area of right around 4. So next month, I'll bring back to you a drawing that takes a new look at our cafeteria and how we can potentially gain 4 classrooms. The Department of Ed has contacted me. They will be coming in August to do a walkthrough with me because we submitted for the co-op in Brookline regarding to see if we'd be eligible for building aid. Now, we may not qualify, but we didn't want an opportunity to go past and at least not have submitted. So I'll bring a drawing for you next month. We'll see where that goes. Obviously, any type of renovation is not cheap, but I don't know to what extent building aid will come back. I also wanted to potentially take advantage of the fact that there were a number of districts in flux, so I'm not sure how many requests they received last March. Might not have been on other people's radar. And then we submitted a formal proposal that was due July 1. And I want to thank our new communications and compliance specialist in Kelly, because together they were able to put that grant together and get it submitted, so we have an opportunity for that aid. I can honestly say, I don't know if that would have been able to be filed if it was just our traditional staffing level.
Can we just back up for a second?
Sure.
On that athletic office thing?
Mhm.
The last statement said, are you anticipating there will be a high school athletic director?
Anticipating it will be Brian will stay in the position of co-op athletic coordinator, and Brian will be provided
As an SAU position?
as a co-op position. So his current position, which we designed knowing that Ron would retire, will
Yeah.
stay. Where you'll see support added is around an administrative assistant, probably a school year secretarial position, plus some days during the summer. The other piece we built in when we hired the Ally Bushman at the middle school, as part of her assistant principal responsibilities, she'll be overseeing athletics.
So
she'll
you have
be
a
working with-
stipended position for athletic director
At the
at the
middle
middle school.
Mhm.
Is that separate from,
That
Ally's
is
work?
separate, and it may or may not exist when we go through this budget process.
okay, but are you anticipating similar structure? So Brian will head up overarching athletic elements for the co-op. And then somehow you're going to reconfigure building level, or maybe not. It may all be co-op level?
It will be just co-op level,
Okay,
and it'll be, again, more in the area of support. Because I think a lot of the work that we've been able to do with Ron on board when we transition is Brian, just like this table he put forth tonight, has been able to provide us with many procedures and practices that are really streamlining a lot of what we do with athletics. From uniform ordering to collecting and distributing things, so.
how does that differ from a traditional role of an athletic director?
I think what the vision we changed was we wanted it to be 7 through 12. Typically, your athletic director is focused on 9 through 12. And we wanted, now you just use Brian's wrestling program because it's the easiest one. Our wrestling program is now kind of viewed by students as 7 through 12 because they host meets, they come down and train, they know who their head coach is, and all our head coaches are trying to take more of a greater vision of kind of that one trusted adult, even though we might have two coaches, one in each building. And I think Ally's work at the middle school over the last 3 years, and the relationship that she and Brian have formed is going to assist in this streamlined process. But I think, once Brian and I iron out the details, I think there'll be a slight dollar savings, but I think it'll be a very comprehensive support program for our student athletes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So what I'm looking for is just from the board, pieces of information that they would like us to look at for the budget that we may or may not be able to incorporate into the budget. We have done round one. As all of you know, I'm not in round one, and we ask the building principals always to bring us everything. So it just gets on our radar, and then I come in and I start to gently slash.
How do you gently slash? So at this point, do we need Brian and Patrick to stay?
No,
Okay,
I would love to see them go home.
yeah.
You don't want to hear what he's going to say.
Just for the record,
I'll
so
hear
are
it
we
once.
gonna post this position as we're looking for an athletic supporter?
You're going to end up hiring some
sitting
jock for
there.
that.
I'm sorry.
That's great.
There you
So Ally's overseeing athletics at the middle school as part of, okay. All right, so, at this point, we can kind of, if you've been putting some thought into it, I was gonna open the floor for members of the board. There's only 4 of us here. Members who aren't here certainly can, maybe share next month, but,
Bye, Brian,
Um,
thank you.
if they have something to say. Bye, Brian, thank you. Bye, Patrick, thank you. So, who wants to go first?
You do.
First?
No, I'm not gonna go first. I'm gonna go last.
Well, we talked a lot about program of studies, and that was kind of where my focus is a little bit. One of the things I've been feeling lately is that a lot of our students go on and major in business in schools, in colleges. And I feel that it would be nice if we had some classes that would help them get ready for that. And I think it's twofold. So right now, we have personal finance, which is under family and consumer sciences, and we have economics, which is a requirement under social studies. But I think it would be interesting for us to possibly look into an intro to accounting and/or, well, I'm gonna say an intro to business management. And I think for twofold, one, I think it would help kids to see if business or something like that is something that they're interested in. But the other aspect of that is not just for college. I think it supports students that are going into the workforce after. We have had a number of students who have started their own businesses after school, a lot of landscaping companies, a lot of the garbage pickup. I mean, a lot of the things that a lot of students didn't go on to college and did that after school, after leaving, and in our community have done very well with it. And I would certainly think an intro to economics and business management would be something that is important for them as well, to help them establish them in a business atmosphere. So that is something that I would like us to look at, and I don't know if it would increase our teaching staff, or if it's something that we can bring in. I mean, certainly it would be new curriculum, and it would be supplies, so it certainly would affect the budget, but it's just something that I've been thinking about. And those aren't the only two classes. I mean, any business-type classes that I think would benefit our students.
Thank you.
Kate or Tom?
For me, and I actually was thinking along the lines of the program of studies as well. I love that we have the opportunity or our students have the opportunity to take these CTE courses. But
I'm sorry, to take what?
CTE,
Okay.
like having the opportunity to go to another school to sort of be involved. But in looking at it more, I've worried that for students who decide to take that track and go to another school, they're missing a number of blocks. And you've got some kids out there who are interested in learning more about auto mechanics or something that can be offered in another school, but if they do CTE, it takes them away from the college track. And they have to make a choice, and they can't do both. And so, I mean, this is out there, but I would love to see more hands-on kinds of learning within our own school that kids could do and explore without pigeonholing them in a certain direction.
So let's build some shops.
Yes. So like I said, it's out there.
Are you good?
I am good.
And Tom?
I'm real interested in seeing how the budget handles some of the inflationary costs that have come through, energy. I'm real curious what's going to happen with our transportation contracts, with any clauses for fuel charges and things like that. And I would like to see the budget clearly break out the portion of increase that's due simply to cost basis change, as opposed to, well, you can control it, but as opposed to things that are discretionary. I think it's going to be very important to communicate that as a standalone item. We've talked recently about the changes with special education costs in the last year, and I'm going to be real curious to see what volatility there is there and how much of it is due to the enrollment and how much of it is due to just, again, the costs of things, because we're going to have to communicate well where we're headed. We've budgeted a lot of money and spent a fair amount of money on our math and our sciences. I'd like to perhaps give the soft sciences and the social studies, the social sciences, their turn now. I think that more and more preparedness relies on those skills. We're not going to teach the kids to be mathematicians, but we may teach them how to be speakers and presenters that they can use no matter where they are. But I'm not saying we can't teach the math, but there's still more that has to be done, but a lot, regardless of where they're going, some of these other skills pay immediate dividends no matter what they choose to do. So if, when you have to do your cuts and slashes, even though it may not be a current buzzword, I think it's going to be really good for our kids if we start to add some prioritization. If you see any opportunity to address my pet project of allowing for in-house supplemental learning so that kids don't have to make the choice between taking these external classes outside the school day or going elsewhere, I think that would be of great interest to me. I really like the idea that you're putting some money into, or looking to do some money with facilities, because I think that buildings, despite the impact that it looks when you show somebody the price tag, that's the cheapest part of what we do. 80% of our costs are salaries and benefits, and we're wasting our money if we're forcing our outstanding staff and the wonderful curriculum to be constrained by facilities. When you take the cost of a facility, amortize it over 20-plus years, the annual cost is very low. Granted, they're not giving money away at 2% or negative interest, but in the grand scheme of things, 5% is still cheap money in this day and age. So I'd be real interested in seeing that, and the sooner we can start communicating and prepping it, we've got now someone to publicize it, so that's it.
So I'm done, but I'm going to kind of piggyback on the outstanding staff comment. So my concern the last year has been with just the burnout relative to all of the people involved in education, from superintendents to custodians and support staff. So I don't know how the budget can solve that, but if there's ways to really, it's really like this twofold thing. So the staff is expressing, I think, whether you see it on social media, it doesn't have to be our staff, you're hearing it from teachers all over, how stressed and how hard the last few years have been. And it's been so hard on the teachers, but it's been also so hard on the students, and we kind of need the teachers to even do more than what they're doing. And they're already doing so much. Like, I totally appreciate they're outstanding, and they've really stepped up to the plate, especially in this district, coming in and teaching, and they're meeting academic needs and they're meeting our kids' needs. But we keep talking about more things like advisory. We talk about social and emotional learning. We talk about these curriculum reviews where we need teachers to kind of dig into that. And we also have multiple conversations in the last 2 months about all these extracurricular activities. All of those things are good for our kids and lead to connection and get our kids working toward getting that one trusted adult. Extracurriculars, advisory. But I just want to make sure that we're taking care of our staff. And so I don't know how to do that, and then the other thing from a budget perspective is, Brian did a great job tonight, and I don't want to put more on his plate, but I know last year when we didn't have team sports in the middle school, we had lots of kids involved in like intramurals. And I really believe wholeheartedly that participation in schools is what keeps kids connected, and connected kids are safer kids. And so if intramurals would cost $20,000 at the middle school, where kids can just play the sport or practice the sport or participate in some way, and maybe they don't make the team, but maybe they're like a practice team, and if that's budget that's stopping us from doing that, then I'd like to see that change. So connecting kids and taking care of our staff, that's kind of my theme from a budget perspective.
One other thing popped up, actually, too, I would appreciate it if
facility stuff, if we can budget it rather than put it into and out of the trust.
Okay.
That's my preference. I don't know if it's anyone else's, those are the budget committees. But the other thing is you have been talking for a couple of years now about making sure that we're getting equity throughout our administrative contracts. The earlier we can see where your thoughts are on that, how that affects the budget. I know the SAU office, it's gotta be, the conversation happens at the governing board, but for the buildings, I'd really like to understand your vision of where compensation needs to be on the administrative ranks.
And then one other thing that we did talk about at the budget committee, because I can't vote, but I went to the meeting. We talked a little bit about the comments that Tom had made, and if we find through research that the special education trust is at $250 now, I think, and it's sort of, the idea behind it is to cover an out-of-district placement, but if we feel like the out-of-district placements are going up, then the budget committee seemed amenable to like adding $25,000 or $50,000 to that trust, so that we would always have the money to cover one of those drastic, whatever, so. Out-of-district placements, one of the ones that is tough. All right, are there any other questions, comments? Are we good?
The only thing I want to put on the board's radar, we are continually seeing increased costs for specific programs. And the example I'll give is tennis. When I first started, we had Camp Tevye over in Brookline. That it was no longer an option for us. So we're using the Nashua Racquetball and Tennis Club, which has worked well. But that costs us somewhere between a low of $6,000 and a high of $15,000, depending on times, transportation, and all that. So it's one of those things, I did ask Brian to investigate and just find out, I have no idea what a tennis court costs, or how many it takes to, yeah. But I think we need to look at that, because I also worry, the more we have kids going off campus, the greater we have for liability in sports. I mean, we're not gonna build a hockey rink, or we're not gonna build a pool on the campus.
Really?
But at the same time, I do want just to be aware, I'm not sure anything will come of that, but that would be one of the bigger items that I'd be looking to for this year.
Yeah, throw it out there, right?
Yeah. Well, I just want to get on the radar, because it's going to have to happen at some point. And I
Can
think
you put some
sometimes,
extra stripes on the turf field?
Yeah.
I wondered about that, to be honest with you.
They have grass courts,
I
right?
know, I really wondered about that. Might be able to make some money on that.
And like with everything though, I mean, like, the turf field is a community space, so tennis courts would be
the
a community
Right.
space, and we really are, we only have 2 tennis courts in
Right.
Hollis, and I
The
don't believe,
pickleball lines
are there
now.
any tennis courts in Brookline besides Camp Tevye?
Yeah. So we would do pickleball as well, because that's becoming huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I
It's loud,
could see,
though.
to Holly's point of intramurals, that might be something that kids would be very interested in.
Yeah,
About
that'd be
grass
great.
lawn.
And so, and then next to the tennis courts, we could put a pool, because we don't have, because on Facebook, every single day, there's young people saying, young parents saying, where can I take my kids swimming in town?
It's just
We
by
don't,
Hampshire
we
Hill.
don't live in
Put the
Brookline,
tennis
so.
courts on the pool, and they could.
Yeah,
open it.
oh, like Greece.
That's
Isn't that the,
parking-
isn't that the
parking
dance,
floor.
too? Right, yeah.
It's a wonderful life.
It's a wonderful
It's a
life.
wonderful,
Yeah.
that's what it is, okay, okay, thank you,
Um,
sorry.
The next thing is, with the board's permission, renovations and facilities update.
Oh, sure, I thought we already did that, but,
The HVAC system is ongoing, it goes very well. We've removed all the units from the roof. They are presently putting up the new steel beams to hold the new units, and they're scheduled to be in the first week of August. The new ductwork is going in throughout the building, all the insulation has been done on that ductwork, and there's a lot of electrical pieces. We were able to determine that our present lighting that exists on the side of the building many years ago was constructed to have the ability to add floodlights to that. So that will be taking place sometime this summer, so that the walkways to and from the turf field, if you were parked way down here, you'd be able to see the entire sidewalk. The press box wiring is scheduled to be done in the coming weeks. It looks like we're going to get 50 additional parking spaces out of the turf field lot. Those will also be used for overflow during the school day. I think it'll alleviate some of the concerns we have every spring with the new sophomores getting their license. The lower parking lot will have the gravel and everything done in getting ready for future pavement. The road paving is on schedule for the next section of the entranceway, so you'll have a right turn lane and a left turn lane coming out of the high school. And that'll really help alleviate some of the pieces. As Patrick said, the new computer room is in progress here. It's been totally gutted. The ramp flooring on the hallways will be done. The gym floors at the high school and the middle school have been refinished. Middle school is still closed, the high school is back open. I do want to take a moment just to thank our custodians. They're doing amazing work. I'd say probably 60% of the high school floors, classroom-wise, are already waxed and ready to go for the opening of school. And that's working around all the HVAC work and everything, so they're doing a great job. Also, just to let you know, late spring, we approved a wealth of equipment for our science programs. That has arrived. It's being inventoried.
No way.
Yes.
Wow.
And it
Who
will
jumped the
also,
gun on that?
yeah.
Print it.
The other nice piece is it will mean all the high school microscopes will become middle school microscopes. So we won't have to transport them every year like we've been doing.
That's great news.
And a number of our interactive boards have arrived. They will be being installed in the coming weeks. So there's when you combine that with everything going on in Hollis and what's going to start very shortly in Brookline.
It's busy.
It's very busy. It's very busy. And we're
Super
getting,
busy.
maybe next week, the bathroom at the SAU will be renovated.
So exciting.
Get a new bathtub?
We're getting-
where to take a shower now.
Yeah. Yep. So the projects go really, really well. I do want to thank.
Such good news, given the circumstances around us, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, everything right now is on schedule. What we've done, just from a management point of view, Gina has focused on Brookline, Kelly has taken Hollis, I've taken the co-op, and Lance has all of them. So he's responsible for them all, but at the same time, this gives him the ability to, like, if something's going on that he needs a little assistance with, he knows who to reach out. We meet every Tuesday at 9 a.m. to do nothing but facilities and catch up, and it goes very well. And I want to thank him. I can't imagine having this much going on if it wasn't for his leadership.
He also did a nice presentation at the Budget Committee that if you haven't watched it, you might want to take a look at it. He really overviewed with them the process that Kelly developed, but that he's been following through on how they come up with a capital improvement plan and how projects are decided on and why they get prioritized in such a way, kind of educating the new Budget Committee members on that process. And if you haven't had a chance to refresh your memory, he did do a nice job with that, and it's all on the Budget Committee slides and everything, so I thought it was good. Thought it was helpful, but it was a little long, so I didn't ask for him to do it here yet, maybe. Okay, great, thank you for that. That's all really good news. I'm very surprised that never mind, I'm just gonna be happy that it's going well.
I'm not sure it's gonna happen.
Great. So we're gonna move on to policy.
Can we take a 3-minute?
Can we take a quick recess? Sure, that's fine. While we're looking at recess, it looks like we might have to look at alternate dates for an August meeting, so if people would look at their calendars, that would be helpful. Because it sounds like, did Tom say he's going on vacation?
Yes.
And you're on vacation, and it's not a good date for you, and Newport, yeah, so we won't have a quorum. I can't be 3 people.
I'm available any day between, except the 14th and 21st.
Except for the 14th and 21st.
Through.
When do you get back, Tina?
Oh, yeah, Linda, I'm sorry.
No,
I
I
could
wanted to
have,
stay for that.
I could have
budget talk,
released
so
you.
it's fine. Thank you.
I'm so sorry.
I'm gone.
Okay.
You just need to
I
like
wanted to stay for
wave,
budget
you
talk.
just need to wave, you know when you
We
can
have
go.
retreat, the 16th and 17th, but what if we looked at the 24th and
want the mics off? You can absolutely do that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
You know that?
Recess, I did,
Yes.
didn't I? Okay, so we're gonna go into policy now, well, let's do the date first. You wanna do the date? Okay, so we have a potential no quorum on our scheduled meeting, which is August 17th, I believe. And so an alternative date that we are suggesting, because we checked with the administrators right now, would be the following week, which is August 24th. That's a Wednesday. The conflict would be, it would be on the same night as the Brookline School Board meeting, so both administrators couldn't be here. So one would attend ours and one would attend Brookline. But it's an alternative date, and if the four of us say we can do that date, then I can reach out to Cindy and Beth and see where they are on that. But if I have a quorum, I don't think we'll have a quorum on the 17th.
It's a maybe for me on
It's
the
a maybe.
24th.
Oh, it's a maybe for you on the 24th. Is the 17th a maybe also, or is the 17th a no?
The 17th, there's something scheduled, and I have to decide, you know, I have a family commitment, and the question was I gonna miss a meeting? And the idea was I haven't missed many meetings, so missing one wouldn't be a big deal.
Right, it wouldn't be a big deal for you, right.
But
So
this
the 17th is a tough one for Kate, it's a tough one for you, and Krista's gonna be in Ireland, so she will not be here.
And Tom, and a new person might not.
Right, and then I know, it's hard on Cindy when we change dates, but I will check with her.
The issue with the other thing is, there's some interesting stuff coming up on the meeting. Is there any option of doing it a different date that week?
Yeah, I mean, we're not opposed to that, we just,
Because I'm not, Krista, you're gone the whole week.
the Thursday. No, I come back the 21st.
No, I'm saying the whole week of the 17th.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm gone the whole week.
Okay, so that week sounds like it's kind of short, because,
It's a tough week.
and the following week is a tough week for me in general. That's just, that day is tough for me.
We could
But
do the
do it makes,
did the 31st, and you've got a couple of days of teachers being in, you can get updates on that, too.
August 31st?
That I can do.
That's the first day of school, isn't it? Or is it the first day?
Seventh and ninth grade orientation, day before the first day.
Would the principals be okay?
Yeah, because they're gonna be here, they've already committed to be at orientation and teacher workshops.
Does the 31st work for you, Krista? And then you wouldn't have to, I mean, you don't both have to be here, but you don't have a board meeting, another board meeting that day.
No, the 31st will work for the two of us.
Does the 31st work for you?
Yeah.
Kate?
Yeah, I'm moving students, but I should be back that night.
Yeah.
You're
Okay.
moving what?
Children back to college.
Seats.
Students.
Students,
Maybe they can go early.
like
No,
next
would,
week.
would the, no, would that, honestly though, would that work? Because I don't want to make a date. So
Yeah,
all right.
no, I can make it, yes, it should work.
I'll do a quorum check on the 31st.
Should
And-
temporarily put on the calendar, just throw it on.
Yeah, put it on the calendar on the 31st. And then, right. What the hell?
Max's first day. True.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
Big day.
And our meeting in September is the 21st, right? The third, yes, it's the 21st, okay, good. All right, so that's good for that, so we'll put the, email quorum check, for the rest of the board on August 31st.
This was sent out, are we looking at this tonight?
No, this was sent out because, you know what, that was because we were looking for, we sent out the co-op board meetings for next year. Alyssa sent out the co-op board meetings for next year, right, for this year?
Yeah.
She just sent it to all of us.
Right.
But I think what triggered it was that we were trying to come up with a policy meeting schedule, and we needed
Oh,
that.
okay.
So that's what triggered the
Okay.
reason for her sending that out. So, because we were like trying to figure out what dates, because there's always that weird, whatever. Okay, so up to policy. So first policy on the docket is policy GBCD, background investigation and criminal records check. I need a motion, I'm not gonna read the motion the way Dawn wrote them, I'm sorry, Dawn, I'm just gonna make it, I need a motion for second reading of policy GBCD, criminal history records check, background investigation.
So moved.
Moved by Krista,
Second.
second by Kate. Gina, what did we do to this one?
So for this one, we continued the, switching over him, her to them, or he, she to they. And that was it.
That's all that we did to it.
Yep, we discussed the concerns that were brought forward at the meeting, but did not make any changes based on those concerns.
I'm curious how the discussion went on the element of the board having to approve the criminal background checks.
So they don't approve the criminal background check. I'm trying to look for the language. It was,
We looked at that.
Section I, final offer of employment. The first sentence.
completion of a so you don't see a criminal records check, but satisfactory to the board would include, not including, as stated here, section 5 offenses, basically all the pieces that are included in other components of this policy, that would,
So we have to approve the check even though we don't get to see it.
you don't get to see it, I don't get to see it, only the superintendent sees it, but you, by approving a board policy that's outlining what's acceptable and what removes the ability to employ someone, that process is considered,
Is it legitimate
Satisfactory
to
to the board.
say which complies with board policy?
yeah, we could change it, which,
Because to me, that requires us to review it.
Okay.
okay, we can,
Why we do second reading? So we can put that change, we'll bring it back to policy,
Yeah.
make the change in policy, bring it back
Okay.
for a third reading, which is why we only did second reading today. So, are there anything else new that you've seen, or that's not new, but to follow up on?
I was just surprised last month and still remain surprised that our substitute teachers are not required to have the same level of check that our volunteers are, because they seem to be at least as,
They do have the same level.
because they're, it says except
Legally,
for-
they don't have to have the same level, but we have them.
Our procedures are the same for everybody. If you're gonna be a substitute or a volunteer, everybody comes across my desk.
A contractor,
Yep.
So we don't do the state police FBI criminal history records, though?
Where are you, Tom?
Are you
I'm
doing
not
F?
sure what to call it. It's section, it's under E volunteers, excuse me, F, exceptions for substitute teachers, bus drivers, and bus monitors.
so it says they may initiate, we require it, but that's basically quoting the RSA. We require it.
Our policy can be more restrictive than, if we require it, I think our policy should say we require it. So I'd ask that you take a look at that and see if we are making the exception or if we're not. And if we're
You're
not,
not.
I think the policy should reflect what we do.
Okay, we'll take them both back.
Thank
I
you.
do want to comment that it was brought up in policy, so we are changing the pronouns from he, she to they. But we're hearing that what might even be more acceptable is to have the pronoun say he, she, they. We're not doing that yet, but we just want you to know that that's out there in the sphere. And so it's not that we don't want to do it, it's that we just, it's cumbersome.
I think that if you do want to consider that, I would suggest the policy committee come back to the board asking for a global decision.
And then just like find a replace in the whole manual?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a good idea.
that might be the way to do it, is to just find a replace in the manual. Okay.
It's a lot of policy.
All right, so that, I need a vote, sorry, need a vote on that. Is there any other further discussion on that? All those in favor of second read of that policy, GC 4-0. Okay, I need a motion to accept the second reading of policy KHB, advertising in schools as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Tom,
Second?
second by Kate. So I will speak to this one. We didn't make any further changes to this policy. We heard what you had to say about, the idea of having a thank you instead of an advertisement. The policy's gonna stand as it is, and there'll be a procedure established for sponsorships. And we'll kind of see that eventually, and then when we see that, we can talk about what a banner should say.
Okay. I have no objections to the policy as it stands.
Right.
In fact, I like the policy as it stands.
We're not, right.
But I will state unequivocally, based on this policy,
Mhm.
I would object to any advertising banners in any place in it.
But a banner that says, thank you to Harvest Market for supporting our schools would not be considered an advertising banner.
Correct.
Okay.
What
So,
if Harvest Market was printed in its logo?
That, if it's just said Harvest Market and nothing else, I would object to that. But if it said, thank you, I'm not gonna get worked up about the font. But when you start to get into trademark branding, things like that, it will require significant discussion.
that is on, I mean, our scoreboards have that. They have
Coca-Cola.
Gatorade or what do they have on there?
Coca-Cola, I think, or Gatorade or something. What do they have on?
I mean, it's on there. So,
Does that predate, we had a long discussion and said, are we going to advertise? We called that an advertisement. When we had the
I mean, it's been
discussion.
there for a while. How long has the scoreboards been there?
I think it predates the policy, but I'm not sure. Was it before 2018?
Oh, yeah, I
so.
would imagine.
I think it was.
We haven't had new scoreboard
No.
since you've been
No.
here, have you?
No, the only one would be on the turf field, and I don't think that has anything. on it.
Yeah, that was a pretty hefty discussion, and one of the reasons that was given as justification is it was basically their scoreboard. They paid for the scoreboard, which is different. I mean, if if Harvest Market wants to buy and pay for tennis courts, and we want to call them Harvest Market tennis courts,
That has, yeah, we can do that if we want to.
right? So that's the Gatorade school, Gatorade whatever, they paid for it, and it's,
So I feel like what we have in policy allows us to establish procedures.
Yep.
That the superintendent will have an established procedure, putting it at the hands of the superintendent to make those decisions. But once we see the procedures, we as a board should probably see the procedures, make sure we know them, and it says under established procedures, so we can approve them if that, and then once we see those procedures, we can say, this is what should be acceptable and what shouldn't be. And I think that's the way to go about that. Because
as
if we-
long as the procedures do not contradict policy.
Right, and that's why we need to see procedures
Yep.
laid out for this. And I think this is something that, I know there's a gazillion things to do, but it's just becoming, now that we've got like a press box and everything up there, you're just gonna start getting questions about when we can start doing these kinds of things. I know HB Elevates is interested, Booster Club is interested, and so, right, and I know the Booster Club is interested in putting something across the live streaming that they're doing, so it needs to be clear to them that it needs to say, thank you to Harvest Market for your support. I'm using them because they're gone and they're not even in town.
Let's not talk about it. It's really sad.
Thank you to Lighthouse Surgical Center for your support and possibly your knee replacements. Thank you. Okay, so all those in favor at this point of this, any other questions on
Is
this?
this the third read and final?
Is
This is second read.
Oh, sorry.
Can we make it second read and final? Waive third?
We can if we think we should. Do you
Well,
want
'cause
to
it's
wait
done.
until we've got a bigger group here?
Yeah, okay, let's do that. Okay, all those in favor? 4-0. Okay, next one. So I need a motion to accept for second reading policy JF, enrollment policy.
So moved.
Moved by Tom,
Second.
second by Krista.
So this policy was essentially what you saw last month, with the strike-through of the 23 credit. That was discussed, brought up by Tom and discussed with the committee, and we felt that that was an appropriate edit.
Any questions on this? Okay, all in favor for second read? 4-0. Okay. The next one is policy IMBC, right?
Yep.
That's alternative credit options. I need a motion to accept for second reading.
So moved.
IMBC, that's Tom, and second? Kate? Krista, sorry? And, again, I think the only change on this one was removing the interdisciplinary credit, because I think it was difficult to define, and we did used to have a class where kids took 2 classes that were kind of connected, but they got a credit for each class, so it
'Cause it's
didn't.
2 credits.
It was a 2-credit class, like if they take a humanities class that's connected to an English class, social studies English, they get 2 credits, so it's not really an alternative credit, it's a credit, so.
Any,
took that
any different option that we could think of that would be qualified as, or classified as an interdisciplinary credit fell under some other policy, so just, Strike through.
I think it cleans it up, thank you.
Yeah. So, all in favor? 4-0. Right, I raised my hand, and I'm saying it's 4-0, and I didn't even look. So it better be 4-0. Okay, so this is a motion to accept first reading of policy BBBE, unexpired term fulfillment as presented. I need a,
So moved.
thank you. John,
Second.
second Kate, okay. And this one, basically, if you look, our language was not what we do. What we do is in accordance with RSA, but as it was pointed out to us by a constituent, the RSA has changed, I think, 6 times in 15 years. So it felt like the cleanest way to do this is to just say that we follow the RSA. And again, this is also an optional policy. This is not a required policy. But we have it, so we figured we would just do that. So, are there any questions?
It's only been 18 years, what do you want?
Yeah, well, we're updating it. Woo-hoo! Get this one off the table. Any comments? Okay, all in favor of first read? 4-0. And then I would like to make a motion to table policy JLCJA. I'm making that motion. This has been Beth working with a large team of people. It also, there's a lot of work to do with this policy related to a plan, and Beth is unable to be here tonight, and she really was the leader on this one, and Jean and I can't really speak to it at this point. So, I make a motion to table JLCJA.
Second.
Do we need a second for that?
Mhm.
Did second.
I just gave it to you. if you
Great,
need it.
Holly, Kate.
I don't know, can a motion table be discussed?
I don't think it can. I think it's just a motion to table. But I mean, you can ask a question.
I'm just wondering where we don't have a policy, it's required by law.
We need to get it done.
Is there any kind of timeline on when we have to have it in place? Do you know?
So there's an action plan that needs to be in place this summer, and they are working on that. So, yeah, it needs to be in place soon.
It's required by law. It was just a new RSA that was
I know,
brought forward.
I'm just wondering does the RSA give a deadline to adopt?
I don't think it gives a deadline to adopt the policy. I think it's to adopt the plan.
It doesn't matter, we're not gonna do it
We're not gonna
tonight, but
adopt it
I'm
tonight
just-
anyway,
I'm just
so I
saying,
think we will try to get through it quickly. It's one of these that we could do first reading next month and do second and waive.
So
Right.
I would suggest we look into
Yep.
if we have a deadline for anything.
Yeah, okay, so, motion to table, all in favor? 4-0, great, so that's been tabled, and at this point, I will hear out from the process observer.
Well,
What time is it?
it is 8:57, which is ahead of schedule. In light of all of the things that were covered, I think that you did an excellent job
Thanks,
keeping it
sir.
moving.
Thank you.
And without shortchanging things, we were probably impacted a little bit by being short-staffed, but
That does make it shorter.
no, it went well, and I appreciate the discussions that our administrators provided for us.
Student-centered, they were great. Okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Krista,
Second.
second by Kate. All in favor? We are out of here at
Thank you, guys.
8:57.